Welcome back. Welcome back. I love the energy in the room and in the lobby. And if you're in the lobby, please join us here in the ballroom for our next program, part of the program. I can't begin without acknowledging our three prior panelists. I just want to give, if they're still in the room, thank you. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to Sarah Steenhausen for facilitating the panel. We're now moving into the Master Plan for Aging Stakeholder Advisory Committee portion of the program. And we've grouped them. We have 6 advisory committees. We've paired them up. You're going to hear 2 and 2 and 2 throughout the day. And we are starting with the Impact Committee. This is the Implementing the Master Plan for Aging in California Together Committee. Some refer to the Impact Committee as the MPA Oversight Committee. Their role is to advise the California Health and Human Services Agency and the Governor's Office on the implementation of the Master Plan for Aging, focusing on accountability, outcomes, and continuous improvement towards the plan's 5 bold goals for 2030. This is a distinguished group of members, and we have 2 representing the entire group today. A sampling, we're pleased we will be hearing from Fernando Torres-Gil, Professor Emeritus of Social Welfare and Public Policy and Director of the Center for Policy Research on Aging at the University of California, Los Angeles. Dr. Torres-Gil. And we are also so pleased to be joined by Eric Harris, Associate Executive Director of External Affairs with Disability Rights California.
Yay.
Welcome, Fernando and Eric. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Susan, and just a tremendous audience. First, Eric and I, my great team member and partner in crime here, we apologize if those of you on that side of the room may have difficulty seeing us, but as you can see, we're adapting and adjusting to our lived experiences by sitting here. We are representing in part this amazing group involved with the Master Plan on Aging, not just the 7 current individuals that constitute the Impact Committee, which is kind of charged with overseeing the recommendations we've been working on, but the many of you that have participated over the last 4 years in leading us to this point where we now have a consensus of how we move forward. You've heard from earlier speakers about the genesis of the Master Plan on Aging 4 years ago, but I think it is useful, if not important, to know the process, because many other states are following our example, and we expect the federal government after November to follow our example with the national plan. But it doesn't just happen. It's a grassroots to treetop level. And to the governor and Secretary Ghali and others' great intuition, they made sure to bring together all the players, all the stakeholders, whether the labor unions, the business community, the for-profit industry, the nonprofit agencies, the advocates, the academics, because we knew if we were going to make progress, we had to bring all different opinions. And after a lot of debates and yelling and going back and forth in our various meetings, this diverse group of stakeholders came to the recognition that we all have a stake in how we're going to age, how we're going to address limitations as we age. And through the process, we came to an agreement on 5 important goals: housing for all ages and stages, health reimagined, inclusion and equity, not isolation, caregiving that works, and affording aging. And that has been our North Star for our work, our coalition, and we're proud that we've made real progress. I mean, there's been some real achievement, not least of which in the last 4 years, we've seen an investment of over $9 billion in various programs and services and enhancements. We've seen, for example, that we now will enable undocumented immigrants 50 years of age and over to qualify for Medi-Cal. That's huge. We've seen the CalAIM reform begin to bridge clinical care with community living, which will benefit all of us who might grow older with a disability. And we've seen renewed emphasis on behavioral health for older adults. So we're proud of the progress that we have made, but as has been mentioned repeatedly, there is so much work to do. And today we will present 3 critical objectives, goals, priority that we hope will continue the momentum of the last 4 years and continue it into the coming years. And in that regard, I turn over to Eric, who will give both the stories and lead us into those recommendations.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fernando. And it's wonderful to be here. It's always great to see so many familiar faces, but also so many new faces as well. We recognize that it's so important that the generations of folks who've worked on these issues for decades continue to be in this space, but also are able to pass the baton when they can to folks who are entering this space and entering this form of advocacy. So just a real pleasure to be here with all of you today. My name is Eric Harris. I'm with Disability Rights California. I'm also on the Impact Committee, and I just want to say how important it is that the Master Plan for Aging continue to include disabled voices. We talk often about aging into disability. The folks who spoke earlier, the importance of recognizing that our state is getting older, people are living longer, which of course is a wonderful thing, and we want to make sure that people have the supports that they need, but also with that, recognizing that disability is part of the aging process. It's nothing to be fearful about. It's something to recognize and embrace and make sure that we have the accommodations needed across the board in all aspects of life to ensure that people can live fully and independent lives as they age into disability. So just a pleasure to kind of be here as that representative. Thank you. I also want to acknowledge the fact that I'm a Black disabled man and the importance, of course, of recognizing intersectional identities whenever we think about how we come up with these policies that impact older adults. Recognizing that being a Black disabled person or a Black older adult or a Latinx older adult or a member of the AAPI community as an older adult has different experiences than somebody who is not part of those communities. And I'm really grateful that the Master Plan for Aging, the stakeholders, the impact community specifically, always considers intersectional identities whenever we're thinking about policy recommendations or ideas that we want to push forward. So another really important piece of the work that we're doing on the Impact Committee with the Master Plan for Aging. So I want to just mention the 3 priorities that we want to move forward, and I want to thank my dear colleague Sarita from the SCAN Foundation for mentioning the 3 policies.
Thank you, Sarita.
Earlier today.
You gave our story away.
But I'll just go over them really quickly. So first, long-term services and supports financing, LTSS financing, is a really important kind of key for us. And we want to urge the administration to focus on identifying sustainable revenue streams. Without developing a plan for a funding stream, we will never see the scale of investment that is needed for an equitable LTSS system in California. So we really want to lift that up as a key priority for the administration and all of state government to recognize the importance of LTSS funding. Second, increase access to LTSS, share of costs reform, and waiver improvement. Our current LTSS system has policy barriers that are inequitable for many in the state of California. The Medi-Cal Share of Cost program forces older adults and people with disabilities to live below the poverty level on $600 per month. In order to access LTSS and healthcare, you need to kind of fit under a certain barrier. Reforming this program is one of the most impactful ways the state could increase access to LTSS and make healthcare more affordable for older adults and people with disabilities. The geographic barriers of the assisted living waiver and the slot limitations of both the ALW and home and community-based alternative waiver significantly limit the number of Californians who need access to these community-based LTSS options and otherwise risk institutionalization. Third, ending and preventing older adult homelessness. We all recognize as Californians that homelessness has gotten to a level that is out of control. We see it throughout our cities, and it is a significant problem that many in this room are continuing to advocate for. And many in this room, whether homelessness was already a priority for our organizations, it has become a priority just out of necessity because so many older adults, so many people with disabilities are part of the state that aren't able to afford the expensive housing in the state and are at risk often of being unhoused. So with that as a priority, older adults are the fastest growing group within California's homeless population. Older adults, specifically 50 and older, now make up almost half of homeless individuals in the state. The primary drivers of the surge in older adult homelessness in California are unsustainable rent burdens and an inadequate supply of affordable, accessible, and stable housing. The state must expeditiously invest in a targeted shallow rent program, subsidy program for older adults and people with disabilities in order to prevent more older adults from entering homelessness. Rent subsidies are one of the most effective policies at helping prevent homelessness. So those are the three key priorities that we want to urge the state to consider. We want to urge the administration to consider. And we're going to continue to think of creative ways to address these three problems. And as Fernando mentioned, there are still so many good things that we want to celebrate while we're all here today, but recognize that there's still so much work to continue to do. So we're going to continue to be a part of that advocacy. And I'll finish real quickly with a brief story from one of my colleagues at Disability Rights California. Reached out to me and gave me some information about a client that she's working with. And you know, this client is a 61-year-old mixed race individual, mixed race man, indigenous, Latinx, and white, who identifies as a member of the LGBTQIA+ community, and is a domestic violence survivor. He is receiving hospice care for liver failure in his family home. He is being evicted by his sister. He was able to participate somewhat in a court eviction process, but has still ended up with judgment against him. Unfortunately, because DRC doesn't have the capacity to represent in lawful detainer cases, we are trying to do a warm handoff referral to local legal aids. That's often what has to happen. It has to be handed off to organizations that have the capacity to do some of this work, which he'd previously had difficulty getting a callback from. So even for some of the smaller organizations, capacity is an issue. For the larger organizations, capacity is an issue. Sometimes social workers have to get involved, other folks have to get involved. And I'm really proud that the Master Plan for Aging groups are trying to think of plans for these individuals, making sure that he doesn't, or this individual and others like him, don't get kind of left out in the cold, if you will, but that there are always people working on their behalf. I know we had 3 individuals who had amazing stories earlier today, but one of the things that I want this group to always consider and always remember is that there are still so many out there who are struggling, so many out there who are waiting for a call back, waiting for an email back. So the work that we do, we understand and we recognize that it is necessary, that there are still so many who need to have a strong voice at all these tables. And whenever we meet as an impact committee, whenever we meet as a Master Plan for Aging committee across the board, we're always trying to think of who isn't in the room, who deserves to be at the table, who deserves to have a voice when we're speaking about some of these issues. So just really grateful for all of you who are here. We're going to continue to appreciate the work that has been done so far, but look forward to the work that continues and that needs to be done moving forward. So very grateful.
Thank you, Eric. And just to conclude, as we continue with the Master Plan on Aging and Disability, we realize that these 3 priorities are just 3 among many others that we are pursuing, that we are still implementing. But we hope this will be kind of the momentum, the anchor to ensure that in the years to come, we renew our energy and our focus. For example, we're advocating that the Medi-Cal share of cost reform be included in the 25-26 budget. We're truly heartened that Vice President Harris has announced that they will support a Medicare home care for seniors and the disabled, we hope. So there is real momentum and there's much cause to celebrate. But hopefully as you all in this room and all Californians go through the lifespan process, and we all know that with very few exceptions, all of us will face some form of disability limitation as we go through the lifespan. No one is excluded from that. And of course, we want California to be that beacon, that model, that we need not fear our vulnerabilities as we get older. And regardless of our limitations as we grow older, life is still good, right, Eric?
That's
so we
right.
can feel real joy. Life is good. But it's because we have you as advocates and the many partners that will move forward with our Master Plan on Aging and Disability and help us pursue these 3 priorities. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, good, we needed music.